I would like to do a short video here on some Photoshop basics. This is something I've already done in class, but I want you to have this video so you can just go right to it. Just to give you a bit of the lay of the land of Photoshop, so I've opened Photoshop here. I'm in Photoshop 2022, but not much has changed, so if you're in a different version, things are probably in the same space. So what we're seeing here is we have a toolbar on the left, which we'll use extensively. We have some tools up at the top, and then we have layers over here in the bottom right, and then there's some other stuff. Okay, so but I just want you to be concerned with layers and some of these tools over on this side. Okay, so I've saved an image from the internet online. Just saved an image, something I found that was cool. The example we did in class was a Gaudi image. So I'm just going to go up to File at the very top, which I don't think you can see on my screen, but that's okay. And I'm just going to hit Open. And I'm going to navigate to it. That's this one right here. Okay, so here is an image of the interior of one of Gaudi's projects. This is a pretty cool image, this sculptural ceiling, some sort of chandelier. This is in Barcelona. So what I'm seeing here on the right hand side is it says background in the layers. So I have one layer in here right now, and it's called background, and it's locked. So I'm going to click on the little lock button to unlock it. And then I can double click on layer 0 and I can give this a name. Gaudi image. Likewise, you could have double clicked on the layer and it would have taken you to another little window to rename it, which would also unlock it. Okay, so let's just talk about basic navigation in Photoshop. So your basic pan tool, just moving around side to side, up and down, is spacebar and left click. Okay, keep in mind we're in 2D, so we do not have to worry about the third dimension, which is kind of nice. So we're only going to be worried about the X and Y plane, a two-dimensional image. I can zoom in and zoom out by doing Control plus, Control minus, Control 0 will bring it to fit to the screen that you're in. If you're on a Mac, it's just Command plus, Command minus, Command 0. I happen to be on a Mac right now. Okay, so as I zoomed in there, you can see our image is quite pixelated. So this is probably a pretty small image. So let's actually check how big this image is. So if I go up to Image on my top toolbar and click Image Size, I can see that, well, it says this image is so many inches, right? Let's change our values here to pixels. And this image is only 563 pixels across and 697 pixels high. Not a very high-res image, but that's fine. I'm not going to change anything in here. If you are going to change anything in here, I suggest you only go lower, you never go higher, because if you go higher, you're going to lose some quality of your image, and you're essentially blowing it up, okay? So we don't really want to do that. I typically never do that. Okay, so I'm just going to hit OK. And I want to show you another thing under the image button here, and that's canvas size. So currently our canvas in Photoshop is equal exactly to our image, right? I can make this bigger. So why don't I put in 700, and I'll put in 800 here. Now this will tell me where to put those extra dimensions. This, seeing all these arrows, is telling me it's going to go in all directions. The image is going to get wider on both sides and taller on the top and bottom as well. If you click some of these, this would tell me that it's going to get wider on both sides, and the height is going to be added to the bottom. So you can sort of play around with these just to get the feel of them. This will just tell you how your images, your canvas is going to expand. Okay, I'll just hit OK. And there we go. We have a larger canvas now, and our image is sitting within it. The checkerboard back there is sort of the background in Photoshop. That's telling me you're not seeing anything back there. So behind this image is just nothing. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. Command Z or Control Z. So that is just basic navigation, moving around, and just finding some basic information about our image that we brought in. Okay, so let's just talk about basic image enhancing, basic image editing. So we have one layer in here, and it's called Gaudi Image. Okay, a good general rule for Photoshop, for all of your image work, is you do not want to mess with the original. We want to do whatever we can to not lose any information on our original rendering, on our original photograph, whatever it may be. That way we can always come back to it. If I start deleting stuff from this, then we sort of have a problem because I can't get that back. Okay. In most cases, you can't get it back. Control Z can get you so far. Okay, so here's our image. What I want to do is add some adjustment layers to enhance the brightness. I can tweak the colors, things like that. So I'm going to go over to the right-hand side and click on Adjustments. All right, so here we have a bunch of options in here to make an adjustment layer. The one I want to turn your attention to is Levels. So I'm going to click that, and what that does is puts a new adjustment layer in my layers list. And how this works is anything that's below this adjustment layer will be affected by it. But if my Gaudi image here, so I'm going to left click and hold and move it up, is above it, it will not be affected by that particular adjustment layer. Important thing to note about layers is that they're spatial. So how they're lined up on here is how they're lined up on here, from what's closest to you to what's furthest from you. So if you move things, different layers in front of each other, it'll either be in front of this image or it'll move to the back of the image, something like that. I'm going to click back on our adjustment layer. Now, keep in mind, there is nothing on this layer per se. This layer is just used to enhance other layers below it. That's all I'm using it for. Okay, so I'm going to go up to this control panel here where you see this kind of weird graph, and we see this black, this gray, and this white. I'm going to go ahead and drag those to the left, see what that does. Really blows out the whites. I'm going to drag the right hand side. This will darken the blacks. That's kind of a cool image right there. And the grays is everything in between, so we can sort of brighten the image as a whole. That can be useful, something like that. So I'm just going to make some decisions here and enhance this. I'm going to blow it out just a little bit. There, so we've tweaked some levels there on that image with this adjustment layer, and I can hit the little eyeball over here to just see the effect that it had after I'm done messing with things. Okay, I'm going to turn off that layer, and I'm going to go up to my adjustments and pick another one. I'm going to pick second row, first one on the left. And this is called Hue Saturation. Here are our controls for it. So I just want to show you this one in the middle, Saturation. I can pull that all the way to the left and completely remove all the color from the image. I can move it a little bit to the right, and I can sort of enhance the color that's currently in the image. Likewise, I could sort of play with the hue of the image. You can move that slider wherever you want. If you want to get it back to where you had it, you can just highlight this number and put a 0. Okay, and lightness, right? I can go make it kind of blow out the image a little bit. That's not actually that useful. Okay, so that's hue saturation. I can turn on both of these together and see what sort of effect that has. I can turn them both off. So I can just turn levels on and then see what hue saturation does on top of that. So very useful. I can always turn them off and get right back to my my original image, which is so useful. Okay, I'm going to show you one more. Let's go back up to adjustments, and I'm just going to click on brightness contrast right there, that first one, first row. I'm going to just play with the contrast a little bit. Just crank it all the way to see what it does. So just play with that a little bit. And brightness. Ooh, look at that. That looks crazy. All right, let's just leave it at something weird. Okay, so that is your basic layer adjustments, in image enhancements. You can play with these different things just to see what they do. More often than not, my renderings always have these 3 at least. This will be my rendering. There might be a couple other layers in there, but these will be my adjustments. And that's sort of my process. I sort of create a rendering, bring it in here, enhance it, and then I'm just going to actually save this file. So I'm just going to go File, Save As. Now, anytime that you have, I'm going to just save it to my desktop, but anytime that you have layers, all right, it's going to want to save it as a PSD file, which is a Photoshop document. So I'm just leave it the same name. That's fine, Gaudi. Okay, super useful. So one thing you might be aware of already is that Photoshop documents are really large files because they contain all this information. So sometimes I just want to send an image to a client. I want to send an image to turn into my homework. What you're going to do in that case is you're just going to make a copy of this image as it looks right now in this state. Now I could turn one of these off, for example, and I could save a copy of this in its current state. And you can simply do that by doing File, Save a Copy, and I can just change my format to JPEG. It has the name Gaudi Copy, that's fine. And then I'll just hit Save. I'll maximize this so it looks the best it can. And there we go. Notice I'm still in my PSD, so I simply just save this JPEG to my desktop. I can email that easily. I can turn it in for homework or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that's basic navigation and sort of image enhancement. So let's just leave it at that to not make this video too long, and I'll go ahead and make another one and we'll just sort of keep moving.